portion of this video is brought to you by Squarespace. Hey, welcome back to the channel, and this is the brand new Mix Fold 2 from Xiaomi. Now, I've had this phone for the last few weeks, and spoiler alert, this is a pretty cool phone and one that you should look into if you're ready to dive deep into the foldable market. Granted, it's an exclusive phone to China, but that hasn't really stopped anyone from getting one. And if you're not a fan of Samsung phones for whatever reason and you're looking to get a foldable, the Mix Fold 2 might just be the next best thing besides Samsung's foldables. Let me tell you why. Now, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and notification bell. It's free and you get to see all the new videos that I have coming up with tech season at full force starting now. Expect a ton of videos on the channel like Pixel 7 and 7 Pro reviews, iPhone 14 and 14 Pro reviews, and a bunch of other cool tech videos. Alright, so the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2 is Xiaomi's newest foldable and was actually announced a few weeks after Samsung had announced the Z Fold 4. Now, I'm not going to compare the two in this video, but references of the Z Fold 4 will be thrown out here and there, but I'll focus more on Xiaomi's hardware and talk about my experience with the phone and what I think about it. Okay, so inside you'll find the latest Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 processor, which is what we typically see from flagship phones in 2022. Now, I'm sure in just a few months we'll actually have a much newer and much faster processor from Qualcomm, but for now, this is the latest and greatest. Now, the Mix Fold 2 also packs a 4500 mAh battery, and it's capable of charging up to 67 watts, which is great because Samsung's Fold 4 can only charge up to 30 watts. So on the back of the Fold 2, you'll actually get a triple camera setup, a 50 megapixel main camera with the Sony IMX766 sensor, a 13 megapixel ultra wide, and an 8 megapixel telephoto camera. And the camera system or lens optic is actually co-engineered with Leica. Now up front on the outer display, you actually have a 20 megapixel camera, which I'll say now, it's decent at best, but nothing to rave about. But we'll talk more about the camera quality of the back cameras later in the video. Alright, so let's talk about the display, or should I say displays, but on the outside you're actually getting a 6.56-inch AMOLED display with 120Hz refresh rate, Gorilla Glass Victus, and up to 1000 nits of peak brightness, which to me is pretty impressive for an outside display. And this kind of makes it feel and look like a normal looking phone too. If you're looking at this from, straight on, it looks just like any other smartphone. So if you want to use the phone just like this without, having to use the inner display and, unfold it, this is more than capable and it looks great. Now, the inner display is a massive 8-inch OLED display with 120Hz refresh rate with LTPO2 tech, so it can drop down to 1 Hz if need be. Now, this display just looks really beautiful to look at, and when you unfold the phone, since it is an OLED display, the blacks are deep, the colors are pretty vibrant, and if you're watching a video on the inner display, you will notice some massive black bars at the top and the bottom, but since it's OLED, those blacks are deep, so it's not going to be, super distracting. Now, if you don't love the massive letterboxing from the inner display, you can always use the outside display if you want to watch your videos without it, and it's still a massive display on the outside, so content's going to look good no matter which one you choose. And as for the speakers, this features dual speakers by Harman Kardon, which also supports Dolby Atmos, and it sounds just as good as the speakers on the Xiaomi 12S Ultra, which I reviewed not too long ago. In my opinion, it sounds a little bit more full than that phone, which makes watching videos or movies or playing games so much better. Now, the first few days that I used this phone unfolded, and when the light hits the display at a certain angle, I just couldn't stand seeing the crease. But, the more that I use the phone, the less it becomes noticeable. Just like when Apple went with a notch for Face ID. I noticed it the first couple of weeks, and here we are 3-4 years later, no one really cares about it. Now, I'm sure in 5 years or so, the crease in foldable phones won't be as visible nor feel as weird the day you take it out of the box, but yeah, this is definitely something you'll have to get used to if this is going to be your first foldable phone. Okay, so the hinge itself is pretty strong and durable, but it doesn't have, that flex mode like Samsung's Fold where you can just put the phone on its back and have the second part of the display propped up in a 90-degree angle so you can use the phone, as like a tripod to take photos. But the Mix Fold 2, yeah, it doesn't have that, which is kind of disappointing. Now, one thing I do love about the Mix Fold 2 though is the fact that when you close the phone, you look at it from all angles and you have this, near perfect no gap fold. And I know that Samsung still can't fold its phone completely flat like this, so it's nice to finally see a foldable like this that folds completely shut. The Microsoft Surface Duo doesn't really count since it's two separate screens, but yeah, this one is flat, which is just beautiful. Alright, so like I said in the beginning of this video, this is using Qualcomm's newest processor, the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is going to give you a little bit more power than the non-Plus version, but it'll also be a lot more efficient. The 4500 mAh battery inside the Mix Fold 2 is actually pretty decent. The first week I actually had the phone, I was using the phone a lot, so I was getting around 4 to 4.5 hours of screen on time, which to be honest, doesn't sound all that great, but once I started using it normally, which, I wouldn't be on it every single minute, I was actually able to extend that 4.5 hours to 6 to, 6.5 hours of screen on time, which is great. Now, do keep in mind, this doesn't have wireless charging, which for me is a little bit disappointing, but you know what? This is capable of charging up to 67 watts, which can charge the phone up to 100% in about 50 minutes. So after using the Mix Fold 2 for, the past month, I can't say nothing but good things about its performance. And I know that every review you've watched are probably saying the same thing, but it really is the truth. The animations are super smooth, the apps launch super quick, and multitasking with 2 apps open at once is amazing, and it's definitely something power users are going to enjoy using. Now, playing games on this massive inner display is pretty incredible too. It's like you're using a tablet, which is pretty dope, so your on-screen controls don't take over the entire screen like a traditional phone. The software running on this Mix Fold 2 is actually running the MIUI Fold software, which adds a few neat things specifically to this phone. So one thing I love is that if you swipe from the left side of the display, a list of your favorite apps show up so that you can tap on it and it'll launch a floating window, and you can have 2 of these open at the same time and you can resize them, flick them away, and bring it back. Now, this is basically what Apple wanted for iPad OS with Stage Manager, but yeah, Xiaomi did it right with this one. Now, since the phone's aspect ratio is actually 4:3.55, which is almost a perfect square, apps like Instagram doesn't look all that great or optimized for this aspect ratio. So what's cool is that you can go into the settings and launch the app in 16:9, 4:3, or full screen. Now, what I like to do is this. I would launch Twitter and Instagram together so I can have both feed up at the same time. If I'm gonna go on social, might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and both apps actually look perfectly fine this way in my opinion. Now, the only downside with multi-window on this phone though is that you can't use it horizontally, but this should be an easy fix for Xiaomi that, they can push out in the future. But for now, multi-window is actually only available vertically with 2 apps occupying the left and right side of the display. But hopefully they can add that feature where 2 apps can, sit above and below each other so that watching videos on YouTube and using another app makes more sense. Overall, software is great. The Fold specific features work really well, but I do wish Xiaomi would just stop copying Apple by separating the notification tray and quick controls into 2 separate sections. It's kind of annoying. Now, this is one thing that I wish that I can change, but besides that though, I haven't really ran into, any issues with app incompatibilities with the Fold, and yeah, I just love the massive display on this. And you know what else I love? How Squarespace was able to fully optimize my website from a desktop view to mobile and tablet without having me to do anything on the back end. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to present your work or portfolio online. Now, I partnered up with Squarespace after years of using their services so that I can have a premium looking website where people can see some of the work that I've done in the past, and it's also a way for brands or clients to reach out and work with me. Now, what's cool about Squarespace is that you can build a website from scratch or use Squarespace's amazing selection of templates. They have a ton that you can choose from, whether you want a website mainly for photography, or maybe you want to set up an online store, or maybe a tech blog. Designing your website is super easy and you don't need to know how to code, which is probably the best part about using Squarespace. For my website alone, it took me an hour tops to get it all up and running, and I didn't write a single code, which is great. But like I said in the beginning, what I really like the most is that once you have your website all built out, it'll automatically resize your website to be more mobile friendly, so you don't have to do all the hard work optimizing for desktop, mobile, and tablets. We're on our phones more and more, so having my website automatically optimized for mobile is a great feature and one that I really appreciate. If you've been wanting to build your dream website, make sure to check out the first link down below and check out Squarespace. You can get a free trial and 10% off by using the first link in the description or go to squarespace.com/MarkL. Again, special thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring a portion of this video. Alright, so for the cameras, after going from the Xiaomi 12S Ultra to this, the camera was a little bit of a disappointment, but after a couple of weeks readjusting to things, I actually didn't find the camera to be all that terrible. So in daylight, in good lighting, all three lenses, the main, the ultra wide, and telephoto look pretty good with vibrant colors and not too much saturation in every photo, but the colors were very true to life. The HDR processing is doing a good job here too, with the highlights and shadows not getting clipped or crushed, and the photos also don't look over too processed with too much sharpening, which I really appreciate. Now the zoom capabilities are pretty terrible, especially when you try to compare it with the Z Fold 4. Anything beyond that 8 megapixel 2x zoom lens is just pretty bad, and I just wouldn't rely on zooming into things with this phone. So in low light, it's a decent shooter. I mainly shot these samples using the main wide camera, and to be honest, white balance, even in low light situations, are pretty true to life, which some phones are pretty bad at, but the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2 did a pretty good job. Now, when you look at some of the other shots, they can look a little bit smudgy with ISO levels going way too high to compensate for the shadows, but yeah, it's not a great camera for low light, but decent enough to, to share on social. But what I'm really trying to say here is that it's not as good as the 12S Ultra or the Pixel 6. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2. If you're in America and you're looking to purchase and import the Fold 2, you may actually have a hard time trying to import this phone since it's a Chinese exclusive phone. With these kind of specs and how well this phone performed, the few weeks that I've used it, I'm really hoping that Xiaomi can release this phone to other markets in Asia, Europe, and some parts of the West too. In my opinion, this is the only competition that Samsung has in the foldable scene. And if Xiaomi can add that flex mode in the next iteration of this phone and sell it to more markets besides China, I think they've got a major win in their hands here. Now, if you did manage to get one for yourself, let me know in the comment section down below how you like it, because this phone, in my opinion, is the perfect travel phone for a power user. You get a normal looking phone when it's folded, thanks to that 6.5-inch display, and when you open it up, you have an insane 8-inch OLED display that you can watch your movies on, play your games on, and just enjoy using 2 apps at once. Anyways, that's been it for this video. If you guys did make it to the end, make sure to stay tuned for my iPhone 14 video, which is coming real soon. So stay subscribed, turn on that notification bell, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.